You're listening to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, featuring guests who take the scientific talk about food and break it down for practical use. You've heard the phrase, "You are what you eat." Come find out what that really means. Experience conversations with experts in the field of nutrition and understand the power of food for our health, well-being, and beyond. Now, here's your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, Mathea Ford.
Hi there, it's Mathea. Welcome back to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast featuring nutrition experts who are leading the way using food starts today, right now, with our next guest. It's great to have Carmen Berry on the show today. Carmen, welcome to Nutrition Experts.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you on the show and share your expertise with my tribe. So you do something that not a lot of dietitians know about or get to be involved in. So I would love you to tell my listeners a little more about you and what you do.
Sure. So from a young age, I've always been interested in food and science. So I grew up in a very health conscious and science-oriented family, which really helped to transform me into who I am today. So starting in elementary school, I really attended food preparation classes all the way through college. So I can't even remember the first class I took. But after graduating with a bachelor's degree in Medical Dietetics, which in my eyes is like the combination of food and science, is like the best career ever, I started working for a food service company. I've always had a passion for cooking, nutrition, and helping others, but I really felt like I was missing something in my life. I wanted to make a positive impact in my community and on the lives of others. So I decided to pursue higher education. So I got my master's degree in public health, and I started at my current job here at Operation Food Search, where I'm committed to improving the health of my community through programs designed to help build long-term skills that help families shop for and prepare healthy, nutritious meals on a budget.
So that sounds like a great, like a variety of stuff that you do. And you sound like you had a change of heart and you really wanted to start working with the community. And you're in St. Louis, Missouri, and you talked about Operation Food Search that you work for. So can you tell us what that is and what they do?
Sure. So Operation Food Search is an independent hunger relief organization. We're dedicated to healing hunger and strengthening our community. We work to feed over 200,000 individuals monthly, and 1/3 of those are children, through a distribution network of more than 300 community partners in Missouri and Illinois counties. So we're more than just a food bank. So we were established in 1981 to tackle the growing problem of hunger in St. Louis. But we have the mission to nourish and educate our neighbors in need to heal the hurt of hunger. And really to accomplish that mission, we've expanded our function beyond food distribution to include nutrition education programs, which are created to empower families with the skills they need to produce low-cost and nutritious foods for their families. These impact thousands of lives every year because hunger is a very real problem in our area. And Operation Food Search provides that solution through 3 program focus areas. So meeting the immediate need, which is food distribution, building nutrition IQ, which is that nutrition education, and championing change, where we work with Missouri state legislators to be the voice of our community in the Capitol.
So you said something about a distribution network. So you receive food and then you distribute it out to, you said you're more than just a food bank, but in that way you're like a food bank?
Yes, so we are a food bank and we receive food from various donors. So it could be like different grocery stores or large food distributors, individual donors, like we do a lot of food drives where we get non-perishable food donated here. And we distribute it out from our warehouse out to different food pantries or soup kitchens or community shelters in the St. Louis and over in Illinois as well.
Where do you get money to pay all the staff? And obviously you're getting the food donated, but people are working. So is it government funded? Do you get grants? How does that work?
So Operation Food Search is not under the Feeding America umbrella. We are an independent organization, so we receive money from grants and from private donors.
Great. So you guys are making change in St. Louis and the surrounding area. What is your role at Operation Food Search?
So I talked about those 3 program focus areas. I am under the area of building nutrition IQ. So I am the manager of the nutrition education program. So I'm responsible for leading the nutrition education team to facilitate and build skills and knowledge that lead to sustained healthy eating habits in the community. And that's through hands-on cooking classes interactive grocery store tours, cooking demonstrations, nutrition presentations, and other nutrition education outreach events. So again, we're not just here to provide food for the community, but we really provide the education for people to choose healthy and affordable meals. So it gives them those long-term skills to feed their entire family versus just providing the food.
Did they initially start as just a food bank and then develop this additional information based on a realization that it was lacking?
Yes, because the issue that we have seen is that when you just provide food, it's like that saying, I always say it wrong. When you give a man a fish, he eats for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
That's close, yeah. Yeah, that sounds close enough.
But basically, like with that saying is we didn't want to keep feeding the line. We want to end the line of hunger. So our goal is really to eliminate hunger in the St. Louis area, and simply providing food will not eliminate hunger. It is providing other resources. So we really are looking upstream and providing that nutrition education. And sometimes it's providing things that people don't even think about, like resources for affordable housing. Maybe they don't have a car to drive or they can't find a job. So it's finding them other resources in our community. And we partner with a lot of different organizations to provide those resources on top of the nutrition education that we personally provide.
Are there other organizations like what you guys do in St. Louis and other large cities in the United States, or do you know about them?
I don't know about them. So we have other food banks here. There's other hunger relief organizations. I know there's one here in St. Louis that focuses on people with like HIV and AIDS and provides food and nutrition education for those individuals. We also have another food bank here in St. Louis that provides food. They're under the Feeding America umbrella. But there are a lot of food banks across the country that have these innovative programs that we like to think that we're on the cutting edge to provide the most innovative program. And we definitely have partnered with others to kind of share ideas and get information on what worked for them and what doesn't work for them.
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about the work you do with teaching low-income families how to plan and to shop for food?
Our nutrition education team does a lot of one-time events, and we call these our nutrition and wellness services. So we do like cooking demonstrations, which can be elaborate as a whole step-by-step presentation on preparing a recipe. Sometimes it's just as simple as providing nutrition education, like a discussion and a recipe sampling. But we also do one-time interactive cooking classes, which empowers participants with the skills and confidence they need to make healthy, delicious, and affordable meals at home. So they're really learning hands-on how to prepare a recipe or two, and they learn meal preparation techniques, all hands-on. We do nutrition presentations where we simply just talk about a nutrition topic. So maybe it's getting picky eaters to eat fruits and vegetables, or one of our dietitians might talk about how to manage a chronic disease. But we also, we don't provide food samples with those. We also do food pantry-focused education. So we offer free of charge to our community food partners, which again are food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters. We provide on-site cooking demonstrations, recipe samplings, nutrition lessons, nutrition education materials. And these are all free of charge and really tailored to their particular site. Lastly, we do, which is one of the main programs, is the Cooking Matters program, which is under the national organization Share Our Strength, which works to end childhood hunger in the United States.
So can you talk a little bit more about what the Cooking Matters program is?
Operation Food Search is the Missouri affiliate for the program. We partner with other organizations across the state to teach classes, so we kind of facilitate with them. But here in St. Louis, I have a trained staff of 4 staff members, 2 of which are dietitians, to lead classes here in the St. Louis area. So we teach both the cooking classes and grocery store tours, which is called Cooking Matters at the Store. So the thought process with this is that kids need good food to grow up healthy, and Cooking Matters is helping to end childhood hunger by inspiring families to make healthy, affordable food choices. So these programs teach parents and caregivers with a limited food budget to shop for and cook healthy meals. So there's 2 programs under this umbrella. So it's the hands-on cooking courses, which is a 6-week in-depth hands-on course, and Cooking Matters at the Store, because families on a tight budget report that the cost of healthy groceries is their biggest barrier to making healthy meals at home. So we teach them how to shop for healthy foods in their grocery store.
So do you guys have any measures? Obviously, you do grants, so you do a lot of measurements, I'm sure, and reporting. But do you have any measure of the impact of your Cooking Matters program with your community?
Sure. So we do pre and post surveys for all of our 6-week classes and the Cooking Matters at the store one-time tours. But the Cooking Matters completed a long-term impact study on the 6-week program and found that families are cooking meals more often at home, as well as making their meals healthier and more budget-friendly. Families are also eating healthier, which puts them at lower risk for diet-related diseases like obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. They found that 3 months after the course, families are eating more fruit, and 6 months after the course, they were eating more vegetables. And when they were shopping, families were purchasing low-sodium options, low-fat dairy, lean protein, and whole grains. And they were more confident that they'll be able to afford enough food because they learned how to plan meals, how to shop with a list, and how to find those low-cost, healthy items using unit pricing. And this was all, the long-term study was looking at 6 months after they completed the 6-week course.
When I grew up, my family sat around a table and ate dinner and talked. And I do that with my children now, but I actually even have started teaching them how to just cook simple things or whatever. But I imagine that that's a little bit of a challenge in a low-income household, especially if they're working. Mom and dad may be working shifts, maybe a single mother, different ages of kids coming home at different times. So do you help them with that type of challenge to get them to cook together?
The Cooking Matters there's different curriculums. There's adults, there's families courses and parents courses. And in the families course, actually learning together. So the kids and the parents are in a class together and they're learning how to prepare healthy foods at home together. So like they'll have the kids maybe grate the carrot to put into the tacos or grate the cheese. And then the parent is interacting with the kids. So they're both learning together how to make healthy meals to eat at home. And there is a way bigger impact when you're talking to the entire family versus just talking to the kids or just talking to one person.
Well, and I saw something on the news the other day that was encouraging for me because I have a 13-year-old teen who's a very picky eater. And they said that when they learn eating healthy or whatever they learn, in the 6 to 10-year-old range, even if they stray away from it, a lot of times in adulthood, they go back to those healthier choices. So the rebellious teen years. So it's good to start young and get them used to eating those foods. I know my kids eat a variety of fruits and vegetables just because I think they were exposed to them at a young age.
Yeah, so I can definitely say my parents, when I was growing up, they were very into healthy eating. And that had a huge impact on my interest and knowledge about healthy eating. But I used to hate Brussels sprouts, and now I love Brussels sprouts because I remember they used to make them all the time, but they would just boil them. So not great. But now when they're roasted in the oven, they're delicious. And sometimes it's just having the kids and even the parents try variations of vegetables or fruits that they never thought they liked. And then they realize that they do like it. And sometimes it's even teaching the parents how to hide produce into foods. So like I was saying about having the kids grate the carrot, that we actually put that into taco meat and it kind of disappears because you have it simmering with the tomatoes and the sauce and the seasonings. And when it's grated, like on a box grater, it just disappears into the meat, but they're getting all those nutrients, all the fiber.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. Let's talk back to about the foods that your organization distributes. What types of foods do you typically distribute?
So we collect and distribute over $3 million worth of food on a monthly basis to our various community partners. So again, that's both in Missouri and Illinois. Over half of the food that we distribute includes fresh items. And our goal is to include more and more of these fresh items. So it's fresh produce, dairy, it's meat, it's freshly packaged foods. And we also distribute non-perishable food items and some non-food items too, like personal care items and winter coats. Because when somebody's food insecure, they might not have their budget to purchase toilet paper for the whole month or sanitary products. So we are providing them with other resources that they need. So again, we're a food bank, so we don't distribute directly to the community, but through our partnership of our community food partners.
So how much food does a person get, and does it vary based on, how many family members they have or their income?
It definitely varies on the family members they have. And this is up to our food pantries. So we typically do not have necessarily a say in what the food pantry distributes. And not all of our pantries have enough cooler space or freezer space to even be able to distribute fresh produce or frozen meats. So they might be solely focused on the non-perishable food items like canned goods and boxed pastas. So it really varies on the food pantry itself. And we are trying to find those partners in the community that have the space and have the capacity to be open multiple times a week and be able to distribute those fresh, healthy items. Because again, we're trying to end hunger, and having a pantry that's open once a month on a Wednesday afternoon might not be ending hunger.
So then do you work with your partner agencies to help find where you need to teach these courses, to do the Cooking Matters? Do you distribute your information through them?
We actually are kind of doing a grassroots method of trying to get to our community food partners. So here at Operation Food Search, so we do distributions out of our warehouse. So that's where the different community food partners come and pick up food from us. So they come here Monday through Thursday, and 4 times a month, one of our nutrition education team members is actually out in the warehouse doing a cooking demonstration. So when the food pantries are coming to pick up their food items, we are out there featuring a recipe, utilizing ingredients being distributed that day. So we're encouraging the food pantries to take what they learn and bring it back to the clients in their food pantry. So they're picking up recipe cards and flyers to kind of distribute with the food item. So sometimes they receive some unique produce like a daikon radish or eggplants that people don't know how to prepare. So we are out there showing them that it's delicious and easy, and here's a recipe.
So what are some of the limitations related to food and cooking in this population that people might not realize?
So it was pretty eye-opening for me. So even as a dietitian, like we learned a lot about like food insecurity, but coming into this role, I still had a lot to learn. I came from a for-profit company, worked in food service, but some of the big limitations that we run into is that people don't have the adequate equipment. So maybe it's cooking equipment like bowls and spoons, but it also could be their larger equipment, like maybe their stove isn't working or the refrigerator is broken, so they can't store perishable food items. And then also, it could be things like simple cooking skills that many people think are common knowledge, that people don't know how to properly cut a bell pepper or an onion. They don't know how to measure out ingredients or follow a recipe. So it's providing those simple cooking skills that you think people know, but really don't.
That makes a lot of sense as far as the adequate equipment, because they may be having things repaired. If it's their responsibility, then obviously you pick between what is most important, and maybe they have a microwave too, so they decide to use the microwave for a little while or something.
And sometimes they're sharing a kitchen space with other families, and maybe this other family has the kitchen all used and they're in a bedroom in the basement, or they're like in temporary housing and they don't have the proper equipment. There's a lot of different factors that could go into it. And there's also kind of a unique limitation that we run into. So we currently teach a lot of kids and teens classes in after-school programs. And one of the major limitations we kind of run into during these classes is the fact that we're not reaching the parents. So we're educating the children, educating the teens. So they enjoy learning about healthy eating. They get to try these unique fruits and vegetables and make healthy food. But then they go home and they're being served like fast food or processed junk foods. So they might not have a say in what foods are purchased at the store or prepared at home, which they kind of makes our nutrition education and intervention not as impactful. So when the caregivers or the head of the household is educated on healthy eating, they may have more of an impact on the entire family, since they're the ones that are grocery shopping, preparing the meals, providing the food. So we're trying to have a goal in our department is to reach more of the adults and teach the families or parents focused classes. So then the head of the household is learning these tasks and can kind of impact the entire family.
How do you come up with the recipes that you make for these food pantry recipients? Or probably some days it's like Iron Chef. Here's 5 different random ingredients. Go ahead and make something. But how do you come up with the right kind of recipes that they can use that is flexible enough, obviously with different equipment?
So we do a lot of what we call recipe frameworks, where you can really use whatever produce you have and kind of make your own dish. But we also, when we're coming up with the kind of specific recipes, we always look for ingredients in their whole form. So whether it's like carrots, like you buy the whole carrots instead of the shredded carrots, you buy a whole block of cheese instead of shredded cheese, because this is all keeping it low cost. We try to use easy to find ingredients, because sometimes people live in a food desert and they might not have access to a grocery store that has all this bountiful ingredients. So we try to find the easy to find ingredients that maybe a corner store will have, or a limited grocery store would contain. We try to use ingredients that could be used in multiple meals and snacks. So if a recipe calls for a half of an eggplant, I don't know, that we would want to be able to use the ingredients in other meals. So we try to use those common ingredients that they could utilize in different forms. We use dried herbs and spices instead of fresh, because they last longer, they're less expensive. And we also limit the number of ingredients in our recipes. So then they don't have to buy 20 different ingredients to make one pasta dish, when you can make a just as tasty dish with 5 ingredients. We also, again, try to make it nutritious. So a variety of colors and forms of fruits and vegetables, whole grains. We limit added sugars, limit sodium and saturated fat, and we use multiple food groups. We also limit the use of special equipment. Not everybody has blenders or food processors. And finally, we try to make it quick to prepare and easy and simple to follow and understand.
Sounds like it's a challenge within itself to kind of come up with all those things, but it's a
fun challenge. So
yeah,
it's when we get random ingredients, we kind of work as a team to kind of find recipes that we think people would like, and we know what kind of population we're serving. So we always try to keep that in mind too, is that we're tailoring our recipe to the population we're serving. It's not always possible. Like if we get a daikon radish and we have a whole palette of it, we don't know what people can do with it. We try to find easy and delicious recipes.
You mentioned food deserts, and I know what those are, but maybe you could help explain to the listeners kind of what that means.
Yeah, so food desert is an area in the community where there is not enough access to healthy and affordable foods. So whether it is grocery stores or restaurants, like some areas of St. Louis literally have no food available anywhere except maybe like a gas station or a corner market. And then others, we call them almost food swamps, where all that's found are gas stations and fast food restaurants. So there's no healthy food items available. So a food desert is one where there is no food, and a food swamp is where there's a lot of unhealthy food.
I think I learned something a couple years ago. I went to a Red Cross event, and they were talking about food deserts. And something that had never occurred to me was that some people do all their grocery shopping in a place like a dollar store. So like a Dollar General or a Family Dollar, they have food, and they may not always have, they usually don't even have fresh foods, fresh fruits and vegetables. I think that's something that we forget to ask people, kind of, where are you shopping? Are you shopping at Walmart? Are you shopping here? Because like you said, they may not always have access to a variety of options.
Yeah, because somebody could say that they go grocery shopping once a week, but it depends where they're shopping. So we try to always ask in a lot of our 6-week classes, where we really get to know the participants, because they're in class for 6 weeks. We try to find out where they're shopping, and we try to tailor the recipes in those 6 weeks to foods that they can find in the grocery store or the shop that they're used to shopping in. So while we would love to teach them about quinoa and all these different beans and fresh fruits and vegetables, if they can't purchase those items, there's no point in providing that education. It's telling them and showing them how easy it is to find healthy food almost anywhere.
That brings up my next question. How can you encourage healthy eating with a limited budget? Because I know if you're getting food from a food pantry, you probably have an extremely limited budget. So what kind of skills do you work with people and teach them to eat healthy even with a limited budget?
So one of the lessons that's really seemed to help a lot of adults stick to their budget for the week and plan healthy meals for the whole family is meal planning. So we talk about shopping in our own pantry first. So it's really looking to see what you already have at home first and writing that down. Maybe it's then looking through sales. So looking in the newspaper, the sales section of the paper, and it's sitting down and making your menu for the week. So maybe you saw that a whole chicken's on sale and you have some brown rice and some beans in your pantry. So then it's sitting down and thinking, how can I utilize these ingredients in a couple different forms? So maybe one night will be like a stir fry. So you're using some of the chicken with some vegetables and the brown rice. And the next night could be a soup and you have like beans and chicken, vegetables, and maybe even rice in there. So it's really sitting down and making that menu for the week. And then you make your list of needed items for the store and you use unit pricing when you're at the grocery store to find the lowest cost item. Recently, in one of the last classes I taught, somebody explained that they love the taste of freshly grated cheese from a block. And she decided that that extra step of grating the cheese herself was beneficial for both her wallet and her taste buds. It was not something that she normally did. So it simply is providing those little bits of useful tips, like take a whole block of cheese, which costs less per ounce than buying the already shredded cheese and grating it yourself.
Those are great tips. Shopping in your own pantry first. I do that. And when I forget, I usually regret it because then I'll go to the store. I'm like, oh, I don't think I have mustard. And somehow I end up with 3 bottles of mustard in the pantry.
Yep, so that'll happen to the best of us.
So thinking about our listeners who are dietitians or healthcare practitioners or everybody else, how would you recommend that they use kind of what we talked about? Can they find local food pantries? Can they work with food pantries? What should they do in their everyday work to implement some of the things we talked about?
So I definitely recommend volunteering. So kind of seeing what's going on in your community and volunteering where possible. So we love having volunteers in a lot of our Cooking Matters classes and here in our warehouse because they really make more of an impact than just us teaching alone. And some of our food pantries don't have dietitians on staff. Most of them don't have dietitians on staff. And even just going and volunteering a couple times, you can be there during distribution and have an impact on the people that are picking up food. And it could just be simply as providing nutrition education or providing a free sample of what was being distributed that day. That can make a lot of impact in the community. And it's really going to where the pantry is and assisting there.
I think it also gives you a better understanding of what some people struggle with. And like you said, it's a challenge sometimes to come up with these recipes, but it's also, it can be a good challenge, especially if you love to cook or love to kind of create. You can have a challenge and come up with something great.
Definitely. And sometimes we call them almost like dumpster meals where we just take whatever ingredients are in the fridge and throw them together. Like you can basically put anything you want in a stir fry or in a soup or a pasta and it'll turn out delicious. So a lot of times people think they have to have this set recipe, but it's really just having the conversation of you don't need a set recipe. Like just use this framework of mixing a whole grain pasta with a sauce and whatever vegetables you have.
I read a book called How to Cook Without a Book, and it talks a lot about that type of stuff, just how to make a general salad, how to make a dinner salad, those types of things. So that's a great book. So speaking of food, we've talked a lot about food. What is your favorite food?
That is a hard question to answer. So as most dietitians, I love all food and I love cooking. So I guess right now I've enjoyed really making these, I call them chickpea salads for lunch at work. So some of those go to, again, these are usually dumpster meals or it's a chickpea tuna salad. So I use a can of chickpeas, I'll drain and rinse it, I add in canned tuna, chopped up onion, capers, and sometimes whatever vegetable I have and mix it together with some vinegar and olive oil, salt and pepper, and it is delicious. Another one I do is I'll mix chickpeas and quinoa and a bunch of vegetables in a bowl and just eat it like that. My favorite go-to meals.
I love hummus, but I love chickpeas more in a salad. Just
they have like a nice
feel of biting them
to them.
Yeah, was it biting them? Yeah. Yep. So Carmen, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I know my listeners have learned a lot about just food banks in general, but also kind of what an involvement a dietitian could have in the lives of others by volunteering as well or finding one to work for. So if listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
So you can go on our website. It's operationfoodsearch.org. My email's on there. All the different programs that Operation Food Search does, it's all on there. And that'd probably be the best way to contact me if you want more information or just kind of learn more about food insecurity here in St. Louis and what Operation Food Search does to kind of tackle that problem.
Well, guys, this has been another great episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast that is all about learning more so you can do more with nutrition in your life.
You've just listened to an episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast. Be sure to get more information about this week's episode at www.nutritionexpertspodcast.com. Tune in next time for another great conversation with a nutrition expert and expand your personal knowledge in the field of nutrition, one conversation at a time.